Right, hello and welcome to the Villa on Tour end of season awards show. Yes, today we are in a slightly different location. We are very nicely in the Hockley Social Club, not too far from the Jewellery Quarter in town. Obviously, I'm your host, Max Stokes, today, joined by Simon Lyons. Simon, how are you, mate? Nice little location for it today.
It's nice, a bit of a change, isn't it? A bit of a change from our living room, so yeah, it's not bad at all, it's nice.
Yeah, it's decent. If ever you fancy coming for some food or drinks, there's live music here, there's comedy events, so it's a really, really nice location, actually, not too far from the city centre. So, big thank you to Hockley Social Club for having us. The awards show is on YouTube, and it is also on our podcast platforms as well, so if you are listening to this, there is a YouTube version if you want to see our very handsome faces. If you didn't know, we already have a podcast. We've got a podcast that comes out every Monday morning. Me and Simon sort of chat about the Villa news, what's happened over the weekend on Spotify, Apple. So search Villa on Tour podcasts over there and you will find it. So today, Simon, we are going to react to the season. We've got a variation of awards, player of the season, goal of the season, that sort of thing. I think there's about 10. It's worth pointing out that we are recording this before the Brighton game. So just bear that in mind when we're talking about game of the season, limbs of the season, because if that Brighton game goes well, it will win a few awards. So just bear that in mind. This is recorded before the Brighton game. I also did put these polls out on Twitter as well, so there's a bit of interaction. You guys voted on Twitter as well as me and Simon voting today. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. So first one, probably the main one, player of the season. Nominations are Douglas Luiz, Ollie Watkins, Tyrone Mings and Emi Martinez. Who have you gone for, Simon? Go for it. Tell me.
I think it's a tough one. I think they've all got reasons why they would win it, definitely. I think if you go through them, like Ollie Watkins, like how he's turned out in the second half of the season with his sort of prolific sort of goal scoring rate. I think Douglas Luiz has been superb as well. He's really shored that Villa midfielder up. He's turned into that player that we never really knew where he was sort of fitting in to being a sort of vital cog in Villa's team. And then obviously Martinez goes without saying, but I think you know who my answer is going to be, and it's Tyrone Mings every day of the week. And I think just purely for the reason that start of the season we were looking at possibly losing him really essentially under the previous manager. He didn't fancy him, did he? And he found himself out of the team at the start of the season and having the captaincy taken away from him. So I think for him to come back, and I mean he was strong under Gerrard. He was probably one of our strongest performers under Gerrard at the start of the season. But then since Emery's come in, he's just been absolutely brilliant, hasn't he? He's been so consistent, so sensational. And I was actually talking to a Liverpool fan yesterday about the game last weekend and about how he turned into like prime sort of Van Dijk last weekend against Liverpool. And I said to him, do you know what though? That's not like a one-off. Yeah, like, he's been so good, especially over the last 6 months. And so and I think his leadership qualities as well. Even though we have the captaincy taken away from him, I still think he leads us on that field. And he's got used to playing the ball out how Emery wants him to do. And so for me, Tyrone Mings. Yeah,
I voted for Tyrone Mings as well. I think he's been monstrous all season. I think I can remember so vividly our trip back from Bournemouth on the opening day. We were sat on the coach and all them quotes came out from Gerrard. I can't remember what he said, but he was something along the lines of he needs to prove himself or something like that, which was just mental. And the fact he sort of, do you know what? I don't think he was bad under Gerrard. He definitely wasn't. He was still good, and he didn't start that opening game of the season, but the way he's bounced back, he's been professional, he's just been monstrous all season. So I think Luiz has got a great shout. I think he's developed incredibly. He has, but I think we're going to go with Tyrone Mings, aren't we?
I think so. I think for me, he's the front runner, and I love what he's about, and I'm just delighted that he turned it round, and delighted he signed the new deal essentially.
Yeah, that was massive. I think it was a little bit overdue, wasn't it? People were talking about it just before it happened, but yeah, he signed that new deal, and that is massive. So we've gone with Tyrone Mings, but I think the consensus on Twitter was Douglas Luiz, and to be fair, you can't go against that. No. I'm not surprised, to be fair, because like I said, incredible season. He's developed massively, still so young. Just big shout out to Douglas Luiz. I think he was quite close, wasn't it, between him and Mings?
Yeah, it was neck and neck. It was absolutely neck and neck. I think Douglas Luiz has been outstanding, and I think especially since Emery's come in and he's found that sort of partnership with Kamara in the centre, I think he's been sensational as well. So he's really up there. He was very neck and neck for me. Yeah.
So next award then, we're going to go with goal of the season. The nominations for this is Bailey versus Leeds at home, Coutinho versus Arsenal at home, McGinn versus Chelsea away, Traore versus Leicester away. And I'm looking at the stats here from what people voted on Twitter, and it's very close. What have you gone for? Goal of the season.
I find this one actually really tough because I struggle to like separate it out.
Different types of goals, though, isn't it?
And that's what I'm. So I mean, in terms of like the meaning of the game, what it meant during the game, and to how all the fans reacted, and just how much of a shock it was, I was going to go for Traore if I'm being honest. But I think watching the goals back, I don't think you can look past the Coutinho goal.
No.
If I'm being honest, I just think from front to back how that move worked out. Like, it was just so good, wasn't it? It was probably the best piece of football we've played all season. If we're being honest, it was so good.
It was perfect, wasn't it? You know that app Score Hero where you can like draw the lines to score goals. It was literally like that. Like, it was just perfect. Kamara, Moreno, even the step over from sort of Buendia to leave it to Coutinho, and just the finish was perfect as well. He sent Ramsdale the wrong way. Only goal of the season for Coutinho, but for it to be goal of the season, it's not bad, is it?
No, it's not. But it was all about the build-up, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It was all about how we progressed through the field. And Moreno, then into Buendia, and he sort of dummied into Coutinho, and then
beautiful.
And it was just a brilliant finish. So I think it has to be that one, just purely on what the goal actually is. But I think everything else that comes with it. I think there's a big shout out to the Traoré one, because I just think it was the importance of that goal. I suppose it was very important, and so that gets like an honourable mention for me as well.
Yeah, of course, and that's sort of backed up by what people voted for on Twitter as well. Coutinho did actually win on Twitter with 37% of the vote, but Traoré was just behind on 33%. So for me, I think goal of the season, you've purely got to base it on the goal, but if you're basing it on sort of what it meant, you've got to give it to Traoré. But we're going to go with Coutinho, aren't we? What a goal. Right, so like I said, this is being filmed before the Brighton game. Depending on how that goes, this could take a massive influence on the next award. This is game of the season. The nominations were Manchester United at home 3-1, Chelsea away 2-0, that Leicester game 2-1 away, and Newcastle at home 3-0. Obviously, if Brighton goes well on Sunday, of course that is going to be top. I can't imagine how it wouldn't be, but because we're filming it before, I think it's pretty obvious where it's going to go.
It's going to be the Newcastle game, isn't it? And from my perspective, purely because it was our most well-rounded performance. Probably it was just. It was so controlled, wasn't it? I think the players were so up for it, and we didn't give Newcastle a kick that day. And it wasn't because Newcastle were poor. I know there was a lot in the media after about Newcastle didn't turn up, and I don't think it was about that. I think it was because Villa just stopped them from playing. They came up with a game plan to hurt Newcastle and to stop Newcastle doing what they do well. And so for me, I just think it was that all-round performance that day. It has to make game of the season for me.
It was quality, wasn't it? And the early goal, we scored so many early goals at Villa Park this season. Jacob Ramsey scoring early. The atmosphere was one of the best of the season, wasn't it? It was absolutely monstrous. Ollie Watkins scoring twice. It was in the middle of that sort of purple patch he was going through. It was just a brilliant day. And the thing that I remember from that game is Dan Burn versus McGinn. That sort of summed it up, didn't it? Sort of Dan Burn just could not live with John McGinn out wide, and John McGinn again was incredible. He had one of his games where he was just everywhere. It was just one of the most well-rounded Villa Park performances I've probably ever seen, and Newcastle have had an incredible season and they've just secured Champions League football, so they're not mugs. It's not like we've just run over a Bournemouth or someone who hasn't had the best. Bournemouth's probably not the best example, but like a Southampton or someone like that. Newcastle were flying at the time, absolutely flying, and just to run over them like that, 3-0 clean sheet, make them look rubbish. Fair play. What a day as well.
I think it was the fact that it made everyone sit up and notice Villa as 100%. Well a little bit. I think we'd gone under the radar for quite a while up until that point, and then I don't think anybody expected that performance. And
I don't think I did.
No, that's what I mean by I mean all of us. I don't think any of us saw it. And I think it was how we started. We started the game so quickly, didn't we? And as you say, like we have a habit of doing that at Villa Park, and in the last second half of the season anyway, definitely. And I think it caught Newcastle by surprise a little bit, to be honest. I don't think they expected us to be so on it, and that day I think the manager just got his tactics absolutely spot on that day, and I find it interesting. Like Emery's been talking about how we've won games when we've been okay, but we haven't been brilliant, like Crystal Palace, Forest, possibly Bournemouth at home, Fulham. But then there's been like the odd games where it's been, you can't fault it at all, and it's been that Newcastle game for me, and then that Spurs game ran it a close second too.
So people on Twitter agreed with that. It got the vast majority of the votes. 78% of people voted for that Newcastle game as game of the season. But of course, like I said, if Sunday goes well, it will be Sunday, won't it? Without a shadow of a doubt, but I don't want to jinx it. I really don't want to jinx it, so we'll see on that one. Right, next award, away day of the season. You've been to every away game, haven't you? We've both been to every single game this season, so we were at all of these. The nominations are for away day of the season: Brighton away 2-1, Spurs away 2-0, Chelsea away 2-0, and Leicester 2-1. It was quite close on the vote on Twitter. What have you gone for?
Yeah, this is a difficult one.
Tight.
This is a really difficult one.
We've had so many.
Yeah, and I think the people voting on Twitter are probably voting in terms of the game as well, probably. But then I'm looking at it as the award is an away day of the season, so it's everything that comes with it.
To be fair, I did this before the Liverpool game as well, so you could throw that in there as well.
Well, I said to you that Liverpool for me was definitely up there as one of the best aways of the season, just because of the weather was great, and we found a great spot in a pub, didn't we? And it was just an all round really good day. I think out of the options that we've got. They've all been pretty good, but I think I'm going to go for the Brighton game.
Oh yeah, I didn't expect that. That's interesting.
No, I'm going to go for the Brighton game, and again, I think it was just because of everything that surrounded it. I think we got there early that day, didn't we? And the weather was quite nice for November, if you remember. It was still warm, so we ended up sitting outside, didn't we? We went to a bar which was literally on the beach at Brighton.
Beautiful. Love going to Brighton.
Yeah, it was probably the most nicest sort of setting we've had in a pub pre a Villa game this season. And then obviously we then went and won, and it was our first away win of the season, wasn't it? Brighton was.
At the end of November, that's mad, by the way.
Yeah, the end of November after being absolutely dreadful for so long. And so it meant quite a lot, I think. People might be a bit surprised by that, but I think it was just everything that came with it. I just really, really enjoyed that day. I've loved all of them, if I'm being honest, but that one just sticks in the memory a little bit.
Yeah, last game before the World Cup, wasn't it? And obviously Emery's first two games was that Man United one and that Brighton away game, and Brighton away, it's not an easy place to go. They've run over a lot of teams at the Amex this season, so to go there, Danny Ings obviously scoring the winner, which was a bit bizarre. He scored a brace that day, didn't he?
Yeah,
Scored a penalty.
Yeah,
so that was I can't really argue with that, to be fair, but I've gone slightly different. I've gone Chelsea away.
Yeah.
I think because was that the day we left 11th place?
Yeah, it was.
I think because Chelsea were 10th and we leapfrogged them during the game. I think that was sort of 1st of April. It was sort of the turning point, wasn't it? It was like that day decided, are we going to be sort of mid-table this season, or are we actually going to fully push on against all odds and sort of fight towards Europe? So for me, again, one of those days where before the game was fantastic, drinking round Earl's Court, which is expensive to say the least. Of course it is West London, but really nice setting. The walk to the stadium is like you're walking through West London, aren't you? You're walking through Chelsea, so it's nice. The stadium's okay. I'm not the biggest fan of the rail seating. It is quite tight at Chelsea, but the McGinn goal as well, incredible. Just a really, really good day. I know Chelsea have had a sticky season, of course they have, but it's always going to be hard going to Chelsea, and that was the sort of turning point for me where you're thinking, we're going to push on, aren't we?
It was a turning point for both clubs, essentially, in two different directions, because before that game, I'm sure we were 3 points behind Chelsea. I'm sure we were, and I think winning that day took us above them on goal difference. I'm sure it did. And then if you think to where we are today, when we're now 15 points clear of Chelsea, which that's crazy. And remember, by the way, that was on April the 1st, and we're talking
less than 2 months.
The 23rd of May. It's less than 2 months, which is absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? And so it just shows you the sort of upturn and downturn that both clubs have had since that match, really. And you're right, it was an important one, and that week was important, really, wasn't it? I think I said to you that week kind of reminded me of the Sheffield Wednesday Rotherham thing in the playoffs.
Definitely.
And obviously we had Chelsea on the Saturday, and then Leicester on the Tuesday or the Wednesday night, whatever it was. It kind of felt important that week. It felt really important to gain that momentum and to also get the points on the board, and that's exactly what we did that week. And so I'm with you. I think Chelsea was great, but I'll stick with my Brighton one. But honourable mention to Chelsea. Yeah,
it's quite close on Twitter as well. If you look at it here, I think 46% of people voted for Chelsea, 25% of people voted for that Spurs away game, which you haven't mentioned. That was class. 22% of people voted for Leicester. So Chelsea just about wins it. I think Liverpool's a shout as well. 100%. We've talked about it. Go and watch the video from that day. It was just fantastic. But I'll go with Chelsea. You can go with Brighton. Fair enough. I like this one. Next award, Limbs of the Season. This is pretty unanimous in the vote. Nominations are Buendia away at Tottenham, McGinn away at Chelsea, Traore goal at Leicester away, and Ramsey at home to Newcastle. Obviously, Limbs of the Season, it's probably going to be an away game. I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Surely it's the Traore one, isn't it? And purely just because it was nearly the 98th, was it like the 88th minute, something like that? It was like the 88th minute. We hadn't been brilliant that day, had we? And then just purely because it was Traore, I think everyone was. I remember that goal actually, and I remember him sort of shaping up to shoot, and I straight away went, "What are you doing?"
I can hear it. I can hear it right now. You to my left-hand side. What are you doing?
And then it obviously flew into the net, and you know what Bertrand Traore can be like. 9 times out of 10, that flies into Rose End, doesn't it? But he executed that one absolutely perfectly. It was it was Harry shaped up to shoot literally first touch, and that's what I was like. What are you doing?
He was running backwards, wasn't he? It was his body position. It was like, what are you doing?
But he had so much time, and I think that was why I was like, what are you doing?
Yes.
And it just shows you what I actually know about it, because clearly I need to be quiet because it flew into the net. But the limbs that followed that were sensational. And then it just carried on while after the full-time whistle then, didn't it?
It was all the players in the corner.
Yeah,
that was beautiful. You don't see stuff like that. All the players, because it was Traore. I don't think he played much football before coming on at Leicester. He might have come on a couple of times, but I don't remember him starting. Obviously came back in January. But so many elements. The fact it was Traore, the fact we were pushing in that game, and Leicester were frustrating us. It looked like we were going to pick up a point. They defended really well, to be fair to them. And just I think it was Harvey Barnes collapsing to the floor as it flies into the net. Just Leicester hate Villa as well. They sing shit on the Villa, which is all a bit odd. Looks like they're getting relegated. All a bit odd. Just so many elements to that. Limbs incredible. That little tight Pax corner in the Leicester away end as well. Just incredible. I don't think it's close as well. I think McGinn at Chelsea, yes. But a last-minute winner, you can't really argue, can you?
No, a last-minute winner is always going to provide the limbs of the season, isn't it, essentially? And, I just think there was extra elements of it which made it even better, essentially.
Like you said, it was following that Chelsea game as well. So to pick up 6 points from Chelsea away, Leicester away, can't argue. Right, the next one, I'm not really sure there's any points to it. Young player of the season, Jacob Ramsey. What's the point? I mean, who else? John Duran, no. I think it's got to be JJ, and just shout out to JJ. We talk about him a lot on the podcast. 6 goals this season, scored in the last 2 as we're recording. Just it's been a good season. I remember at the start of last season, which was Dino, wasn't it? I was thinking about this on the way here, like that
start
Watford
last
game.
Season.
Yeah, start of last season
was
that Watford game when we lost. That feels like years ago, by the way. That's mad. That was last season. But I remember thinking with JJ, like, it's nice to have a young Villa lad in there, one of our own, whatever. But I didn't really know what he was. He hadn't scored goals. He didn't really see that sort of drive and run that we know he's got now. He was lacking a bit of confidence, which is natural. A young player playing in the Premier League, he's probably a bit shy, of course he is. But to see how far he's come in a short space of time, he's still only 21, by the way, 22 soon, I think. So he's younger than me, which is mental. I hate that. But yeah, it's pretty obvious. It's JJ, and it's nice to see how much he's developed.
Yeah, you're right, and I agree. I think when he broke through into the first team, I remember when he made his debut. He made his first start away at Wolves, didn't he? In lockdown, and I remember he was he was tidy on the ball. He didn't get on the ball a lot, did he? He was sort of tidy on the ball. But you're right. You were sort of questioning what he's supposed to be an attacking midfielder. Is he going to offer that? And I was always a bit like, he's he's a steady Eddie player and he'll be okay for us in the coming years. And I didn't expect his resurgence, to be fair. I didn't expect him to come on how he did. And that, to be fair, a lot of that happened under Gerrard, to be fair to him. He did take that mantle on under Gerrard, to be fair. And then again, the second half of this season, he's just it's his numbers, isn't it? That's really increased. His goals and his assists, his contributions to that have been really, really, really high level, haven't they? Second half of the season, and he's that type of player. He's going to be in the right position, and also I think you look at him, and I think he's stronger now. He's built stronger, isn't he? And he goes on these long mazy runs, and he can hold people off in the corner or lay it off to somebody else. And I think he's come on leaps and bounds. And as you say, it's so good to have a Villa lad, isn't it, within the team. That's what we all love. We love one of our own to be in and around it. And I think he's got a massive future. I think he's made 100 appearances now for Aston Villa.
It's mad.
And he's only 21.
It's crazy.
And I mean, that just shows you, obviously how highly thought of he is at the football club. And you don't want to get into the territory of saying, he's BLB forever sort of thing, because I know that's what we used to do with Jack Grealish.
Been there before.
But I think he's got a really high ceiling, to be honest with you, and I'm really excited to see where he can take it, and let's just hope he's with us for many years to come. Right,
the next award is Surprise of the Season. The nominations for this one are Douglas Luiz, Ezri Konsa, Ashley Young and Ollie Watkins. I think on the votes on Twitter, 59% of people went with Ashley Young. I'd go with Ashley Young. Go with Ashley Young.
I think that's fair, isn't it? I think that's really fair, and I think, again, from my perspective and my opinion on Ashley Young was that towards the end of last season, I remember away at Leicester when he played away at Leicester and he was at left back that day. And I remember saying, I think it's the end of the road for Ashley Young, really. Now, I didn't think he was playing particularly great when he was at left back last season under Gerrard, and we were always worried when Dino got injured, weren't we, towards the end of last season? Ashley Young coming in, and I thought it was probably going to be the end of the road for him, if I'm being honest. And then obviously he did get his new deal, which I wasn't against. I'm never against Ashley Young getting a new deal, because he's been such a good servant and such a good player for our football club over the 2 spells. But yeah, I thought it was the end of the road, and then for him to come in this season and play so often as well. Like he
way more than any of us
so
would have
much.
predicted.
Yeah,
way more.
He must have played like over 20 odd games, mustn't he?
You'd think over half, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he must have.
Matty Cash's injury, etc.
Cash has had a few like injury problems, and Cash wasn't in the team for a little while as well. If you remember, he's been on the bench and stuff.
Yeah, he had to sit out when he returned from injury, didn't he? Because Ashley Young was doing so well.
Yeah, and so Ashley's been brilliant, and I think he's. You know, I remember that Chelsea game when he was away, when he was absolutely phenomenal that game, and he just kept everybody quiet, and he was literally put in that much of a shift. He was literally having to be helped off the pitch, if you remember. And he made that joke after he was saying, "Oh, you know, you're going to spend a couple of days in the ice bath," sort of thing, just to get his legs working again. But yeah, I mean, I just think he's incredible. I think he's approached his 38th birthday this summer, and he's still a really high quality sort of fullback now in the Premier League, and that's mad. And now there's the question: what do we do with him next year? Does he get another deal?
You got it. You've got to like just forget about his age. Why would you not? He's been so good, and you know he's probably not going to play. If regarding injuries, he's probably not going to play as much next season. But you'd have him around, wouldn't you? 100% with the younger players. He's so professional. He's experienced. Whatever. If I said to you 15 years ago, Ashley Young is going to be playing right back for Villa in the 2022-23 season, you'd have thought that's mental. Left wing Ashley Young at right back. It's just crazy, and I love him. I do. I love Ashley Young. And
you're right, and that's in a team competing for European place as well.
Yeah.
Not just he's come back just for a bit of a swan song, but he's not playing particularly great, and he's anywhere. I mean, he's literally been really high level this season.
It's not a romantic thing, is it? He's genuinely been incredible.
He's been really high level. Do you remember that Leeds game at Villa Park as well, when it was him against Nonto?
Yeah.
And like that lad gave him a few
half his age.
Night. Yeah, but it was such a good battle to watch. That was, and I love Ashley Young. Massive shout out. He's got a great relationship with the fans as well, hasn't he? And I think we all love Ashley Young, and just for his experience. But he's not just experience. He's not just around just for a bit of a laugh. He's a
bloody good player.
He's a good player still. And so for me, 100% you keep him next season.
Yeah, it's give him a new contract. You know, surprise of the season. It's got to go to Ashley Young, but I think there's got to be a little tiny mention for Ezri Konsa, because I think he had a slightly difficult start to the season, but he's come back and he's been absolutely monstrous next to Tyrone Mings. I don't think surprise is probably the wrong word, but I just want to give him a shout out because he always goes quite underrated. Mings, everybody talks about Mings, whatever, but Ezri Konsa sort of under the radar, does his job week in week out, Mr. Consistent. Just a small little shout out for Konsa.
Well, yeah, and he's like 7 out of 10 every week, isn't he, Ezri Konsa? And sometimes it's nice to have players like that. If you think about it, you know, we only paid 12 million for Ezri Konsa, and he's turned into a centre half you can really rely on if you're in the hunt for European football, which we are this season. And a massive shout out to him, because I think him and Mings have forged that partnership, what we knew they could do, and what they did during that lockdown year, if you remember, how they were so good. And Villa don't look like giving many goals away these days at all. You know, how many goals we can see 2 in the last. I don't know.
Is it something stupid? What is it? 4 in 14 from open play.
Yeah,
which is
absurd, isn't it? Absolutely
crazy.
Absurd. And massive shout out to Konsa.
Right, a couple more awards then. The penultimate one then, signing of the season. Only 3 nominations for this one. You could probably argue there should really only be 2. Dendoncker, no. Kamara and Moreno. I think it was quite relatively close on the vote. 53% of people voted for Moreno, 46% for Kamara. I think it probably would have been Kamara had he played consistently the way we know he can do for the whole season without his injuries. But you can't look past Moreno in terms of, you know, the fact he came in for 13 million, bargain, came in January, fitted in so well, and he's just kind of transformed the way we play, and he's so perfect for that role in the way Emery wants to play on that left-hand side. So good going forward. A couple of questions on his defensive ability at the start, but you can't argue against that now. He's good forward, good back, involved in so many goals, assists. He's a great little bargain, he was. Signing of the season, hands down for me.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think Kamara's ran him really close, to be honest. I think, firstly on Kamara, I think that was the best, probably the only bit of recruitment we did well under Steven Gerrard, if we're being totally honest.
Yeah.
It was a good coup for Villa to get him in.
Massive.
You think about the age Kamara is, you think about how he dominates the football when he's in the team, and I think under Gerrard we were really struggling, and yet he was probably the standout, wasn't he, under Gerrard? And then he had that early injury, didn't he? And then he came back. He came back in Emery's first game, wasn't he? And he was on the bench, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And again, Emery's just found that way to play him in that sort of two with Douglas Luiz, and it's been a bit unfortunate with injuries, and I think we really missed him.
Yeah, we did,
to be honest, when he was out. So he's very, very close to it for me. But yeah, as you say about Moreno, obviously it was an area which Emery really wanted to strengthen on, and that's not a criticism of Luca Dean really. Luca Dean's a very different sort of player, and I said to you the other day that it's great having that competition between Moreno and Dean, having that choice there, because they're two very different players and they bring different things to the table. So having them two there is brilliant for us. But yeah, you're right, Moreno, bloke that none of us really knew about.
No.
We paid 12-13 million for him, which in today's terms is very, very little, isn't it? And he's been brilliant. He's been everything that Emery wanted him to be. And I think the first couple of games we were worried about his defensive capabilities. We were thought, he's really good attacking, but defensively we're not too sure. But I've got to say about Moreno in his defence, I don't think his defensive capabilities have been that bad. To be honest with you, I think he's been fairly all right. Probably not as good defensively as Luca Dean probably, but
I don't think there's a big difference, to be honest.
But I think overall, I think it's been pretty good.
Yeah, he offers so much, and I think he's hands down going to be there. Next season, 100%. He's going to be starting. Like I said, he's just so vital for the way we want to play. He's always there, isn't he? He's always in space. He's sort of always the outball. His delivery very, very consistent. The one that stands out for me, that assist for Ollie Watkins at West Ham. It's just pinpoint, absolutely pinpoint. He can get past players as well. I don't think we have enough players that can sort of beat a man, or you can trust one-on-one to actually beat a man. But the way he glides past players, low centre of gravity, can pop it through someone's legs if he wants to. Yeah, I love Alex Moreno, and the way he's come in and been so good and so consistent, so fast in a new system, new country. Brilliant, love it. Right, last, it's not really an award. It's a little bit annoying to sort of end on a disappointing one, but this one is disappointment of the season. I think we've got to cover it. There's 3 nominations: Leon Bailey, Coutinho, and based on that Liverpool game, it's probably a little bit unfair, but Luca Dean's in there as well. I've thrown him in there, but the winner with 50% was Coutinho. Leon Bailey got 40%. For me, it's got to be Coutinho.
I think that's a bit harsh on Bailey, to be honest.
I do as well. I think there's high expectations on Leon Bailey. Has he been disappointing in spells? For me, yes.
Yeah, he has in spells. But I think overall, I still think he's added some key goals.
It's his output, isn't it? It's his output that's the difference.
If you look at his numbers haven't been that bad.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really being honest, he's frustrating. I totally understand that he's frustrating, and there's times when you think, "Oh, come on, Leon, you're better than that. You are better than that," and his head goes down a little bit sometimes. We know that. He's an inconsistent winger, isn't he?
I think it's the basics with him. It's like you've done the hard work. Now, can you find a pass, or can you find that good through ball, or can you actually get past your man and look confident? I think yes, he's lacking confidence. You don't really trust him to get past a man, but he's popped up with important goals.
Yes.
He has that Man City at home game where he got us a point with a great finish, by the way. I think when he doesn't have to think about it, he does well. It's just when he's got the ball at his feet and he's sort of got choices. He's a bit indecisive. You don't really know what you're going to get.
I just think that I think as for the future, if we're talking about players who are going to be around in and around it, I still think Leon Bailey is there. I still feel like he's a good option to have, and he probably won't be your sort of starting winger next season. We need somebody else in there, don't we? Who's a bit more consistent, a bit of quality. Because at the moment, let's be honest, we over rely on Leon Bailey. When he's fit, Leon Bailey usually plays because he's the only real player we got like that. We don't rely on Traore because we know he's not as good. Let's be honest, and we can't sort of trust him all the time. So we do over rely on Bailey, but I think it's a little bit harsh like that. I was surprised by that 40% because I think that's quite.
I think he's got a bit of a stigma, hasn't he? Because like you said, he's frustrating, so people are automatically going to vote for it. But I think if you actually step back a little bit, think about how much, like you said, we rely on him.
Yeah,
like you said, a little bit unfair.
Yeah, I think on Coutinho, I think he has been disappointing, and I think some of it's not, some of it's out of his control. He's had bad luck with injuries, absolutely. And I think when he we played against Arsenal, played really well, scored a great goal, and then he got injured, and then he came back against Wolves on the bench, and he got injured again.
So unfortunate.
So he's had a lot of bad luck with injuries, but I think he was sort of our sort of marquee sort of signing, wasn't he? Christian Perslow announced it at the awards
this time last year.
The awards night, and there was a lot of this is brilliant for Villa, real statement signing. And he has really flat to deceive, hasn't he?
We're doing a separate video on what we like each player, keep or sell. But briefly, do you reckon he'll stay? Because I want to see him, injury-free run under Emery. I want to see how that would sort of fit in. Because I think the way Emery sort of, makes subs during a game, sort of Buendia hasn't been incredible. So to see how Coutinho would fit in the system when we're playing well, I want to see sort of one last something from Coutinho.
I could see going both ways, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I think if Villa got an offer which made financial sense to Villa, I think they would probably take it.
Has he got one more year on his contract? Because did he sign a 2-year contract?
I think it might be more. I think it was a 3-year, wasn't it?
Okay.
I think he's got a couple of years there. And so I just wonder whether Villa are going to get an offer which is going to be financially attractive to Aston Villa or not. I don't know whether that will come. I could see like a loan offer from somewhere in like Brazil or in China or something. And
but what's the benefit?
Exactly,
there?
and that's the thing for Villa. It's like, well, we might as well keep him around. He's a good
Yeah.
player to have around, and if he's fit, we'll add something. And so I know we're talking about his wages are astronomically high. Well, that's our problem though. We gave him a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
I think it was
It's not
a
his
3-year
fault.
deal anyway. It's not his fault, and so I'm a little bit torn on whether he'll go or not. To be honest, I think, like I say, if we get an offer which would suit Aston Villa and suit all parties, I think he would go. But I have a little doubt in my head whether that offer will come, to be honest. So I think he might still be around next season.
Interesting. Right, so that is the end of the Villa on Tour end of season awards. If you agree with us, let us know. If you don't, get involved in the comments. Leave a like on this video if you have enjoyed it. Obviously, slightly different. It's a podcast where you can see us as well. Whatever you're listening on Spotify, Apple, if you are watching on YouTube, smash your subscriptions everywhere. Leave a like, whatever you want to do. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Up the Villa.